So, let's read instead. Because I usually upload these to YouTube. Alright. Did I quick save? I did. Yeah. I saw two lights swaying slowly in front of me. A car was approaching. Oh no, I need to get out of the way. From far away in the shadows of the darkness, a car appeared. Its dazzling lights washed over me. The driver made a short honk of the horn to inform me I was in the middle of the road. I have to get out of the way. I kept telling myself that, but not only was I riding one-handed, I was exhausted, so I couldn't do anything. I meandered about, not going to the right or to the left. The driver decided to swerve out of the way right in front of me without lowering its speed much. Steadily came toward me. Its outline grew larger in my vision, and telling myself again I needed to really get out of the way, I jerked the handlebars in one direction and lost my balance and fell over, bike and all. My whole body splayed out and one foot got caught in the bike. This was seriously bad! My drowsiness quickly vanished, and just as the cold sweat broke out on my skin, the driver recklessly spun the wheel to the left and made a counterclockwise U-turn and came right up to me and stopped. The driver's seat door opened, and the driver came out. Oh man, this is such a creepy scene in the manga. I love it. Oh, it makes me seriously scared if I saw that in a dark alleyway. But yeah, anyway. You idiot. What are you doing here? I was pretty sure someone would yell at me like that.
Oh my, look who it is.
It was a woman's voice, and the one I knew. I lifted my face off the ground and looked at her. Takano.
Good evening. The moon is very pretty tonight, my Bara.
It was raining far too hard to see the moon. Takano unfolded an umbrella and smiled as she spoke. That smile was for some reason uncanny, like she'd seen right through me. Out of all the people I could have met, I got the sudden feeling this was the one I wanted to see the least.
What are you doing out so late? And you're soaked and covered in mud, and no umbrella either. What is that? A shovel?
She had come here via car. She wouldn't have known what I was doing, and yet she smiled as though she knew everything. Calm down, my Barakechi. She always makes that mysterious-looking smile, remember? Don't let her do anything lest you dig on your own grave.
The rumors say you were playing baseball with a golf club. Is that what the shovel's for, too? You're using it as an umbrella?
I should tell a good lie here. If I could just do that, things would work out. When I went with Rena to go digging for treasure in the dam, we forgot this here.
And you went to get it in this downpour.
When I left my house, I didn't think it would rain, so...
Oh, it's been raining for a while, though. You've been out for quite some time, haven't you?
Well, yes, I was kind of wandering around.
Even so, you came from that direction, didn't you? The dam is in the opposite direction, you know.
Takano was very clearly aware that something exceedingly abnormal was happening with me. And as she played her little word games, she was enjoying driving me into a corner. Maybe she had a vague guess, just from the situation of what I'd been doing. My timing really sucked. To run into her, of all people, of all times. At the very end, I could only be frustrated at my terrible luck. I'd done so much. At the end was literally right around the corner. So why at the very end, did I run into her of all people? What do you do, my Barakechi? You're still holding something that could be used as a dangerous weapon. Will you silence Takano? Even if it would be simple to kill Takano, dealing with the car she'd come in afterward would be an issue. I couldn't drive a car. It was completely different from a motorbike. But even if the car was here, as long as there was no proof I killed her. Yes, in tonight's downpour, without any prior planning, all by coincidence, a hit and run. As long as I didn't drop any handkerchiefs with my initials on them, they would never know I killed her. A black flame quietly smoldered and raged in the core of my body.
That's a scary look. Did I tease you too much?
Takano started to laugh by herself, and thankfully stopped talking about it. But the dark clouds in my mind didn't go away.
Leaving that aside, how long are you planning to crawl on the ground with your bike like that? Would you mind moving out of the way?
If I moved, she would leave, so I tried to get the bicycle up and out of the way, but then I twisted my ankle and it fell over. Shit! There was a sharp pain in the ankle I twisted. This is nonsense. A sprained ankle. Now?
Oh my. Are you alright? Did you twist your ankle?
Takano squats down and takes a good look at the ankle I keep rubbing. She compares it to my facial expression, apparently trying to gauge how bad the wound was.
Can you stand?
Ugh. I didn't expect to, but I couldn't even stand up. It was all I could do to shamelessly wriggle on the ground like a caterpillar. Takano looked at her watch and at her car, after thinking for a moment, opened the passenger seat door, and then gave me her shoulder to stand up with.
I'll take you home. I do feel bad since it's almost like I hit you.
I'm sorry.
I wouldn't just leave you there. It's a good thing I'm a nice person.
Nobody good has ever called themselves a nice person, but that would have been a terrible thing to say to someone holding me up like this. I took Takano's hand and sat down into the passenger seat. Takano went around the back and looked at my bike on the ground.
I don't suppose we could take the bicycle home tomorrow.
I could clearly tell from her face that she thought it would be a pain since it would be heavy and would get her car dirty, but my bike has the name Mybar written on it. I couldn't leave it out here like this. Well, can you somehow put it in the car? I sorta need it.
The trunk is already full. If I put it in the back seat, it'd get the seats dirty with mud. Well, given how you're already in here, it's already dirty, I suppose.
I turn back to the back seat and see someone's folding bicycle there already. It still looked big enough to fit my bike in there as well. My expression expressed my thoughts. An exact thought seemed to get through to her.
All right. I'll put it in here for you. I'll be really nice, but just for tonight, okay?
Takano continued with her mean jokes, but she hoisted my bike and loaded it into the back seat for me. The mean jokes were one thing, but couldn't she do something about that eerie smile of hers? And even more importantly than the bike, I didn't even want to leave the shovel here. The shovel could be directly connected to the buried body and to me. Sorry to ask another favor, but could you get my shovel too? Takano very clearly gave me a dubious expression.
Your shovel? That's fine with me. Is it important?
The more I talk, the worse it gets for me. That's how I felt, so I didn't force myself to answer her. Eventually outlasted by my silence, Takano gave a short shrug and sighed.
All right, I understand. You need your shovel, right? You don't need to make me such a mean face.
Takano brought over to the shovel that was lying in the middle of the road. I clutched it like I'd never let go again. Takano watched me with a puzzled look.
Okay, let's be off. Mybar, you live at the Mybar mansion, don't you?
Why does everybody call my house the Mybar mansion?
Because it's actually a mansion. It must be nice to be rich.
As she spoke, Takano pulled the handbrake and stepped on the gas. After making a skillful U-turn using the shoulder of the road, she steadily increased in speed. From the rearview mirror, that accursed place seemed to melt into the darkness.
Read?
Huh? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. What was that? Takano suddenly tried to say something to me, but thoughtlessly I didn't catch it. Looking ahead, Takano said the same thing one more time.
The body. How well was it buried?
I thought my heart might beat out of my chest, but I didn't let it show. But my lungs squeezed tight. I couldn't breathe. What are you talking about?
When burying bodies in mountains like these, you have to bury it fairly deep because wild dogs will often smell the corpse and dig it out. Some human bone a wild dog brings back in its mouth leads to an incident being uncovered. The police head out to this stretch of mountains. It actually happens pretty often, you know.
huge rusted bell started ringing in my head. Had I buried it so deep that I could say it absolutely wouldn't be found? The answer was no. I was in such a rush to bury him and get it over with, I couldn't have denied the possibility of burying it too close to the surface. No, wait. That's not... Wait, anyway. This woman... How does she know? She just passed by here in her car by coincidence. We ran to each other by coincidence. She'd been watching the entire thing from the trees, and once I left, she came back in her car. It didn't make logical sense, so then... Why? My Barakeichi. That's it. You need to kill her. My entire body reawakened. I could feel my pupils dilate. I couldn't possibly beat her to death with a shovel in such a small car. And I would use my hands and strangle her. But she was driving right now. If I strangled her, we might get into an accident. Then suddenly Takano turned and looked at me. What? No ready retort? For a moment I was surprised what she was talking about. It would seem we're not a very good match, Takano said, disappointed, returning her gaze ahead. I repeated the words she had said a few times in my head, and finally realized she meant it as an off-color joke. I didn't know whether it was really a joke, but I wouldn't be able to fool her no matter how many lies I told. Right now, with her driving the car like this, I couldn't kill her. I would have an even harder time doing it when we got back to my house. The moment we met, that could have been my best chance. And to have missed it so easily, it hurt. After that, Takano didn't say a single word. The car was completely buried in almost suffocating silence. What kind of woman had I run into? With everything that happened today, I managed to pull it off. And at the very end of it all, I just had to go home and go back to sleep. What bad luck. As my sleepiness gradually overtook me, the anxiety I felt steadily started to matter less and less. Is that all right, my Barakeichi? You probably shouldn't leave this woman alive. Right now, I'm tired. She stepped on the brakes and I jerked against my seatbelt. That woke me up. I thought I must have fallen asleep by accident. I looked out the window. There was a big building with faint lights on. It was really dark out, but I immediately knew it was my house. I'll go get your folks for you. Would you mind the place for a few moments while I'm gone? Don't make fun of me, please. Besides, look, I'm fine now. I can walk by myself. Oh my, you were in such pain before that you had to get me to carry you. Did you just want a pretty lady to be nice to you? As Takano spoke, she left the car and opened up her umbrella. The sound of falling raindrops was fierce as always. I carefully reached down and rubbed the ankle I'd twisted. There was still some pain and a little weirdness, but they weren't that bad anymore. Rather being happy about how light the wound was, I first regretted this whole thing. If I hadn't twisted my ankle, I would have still taken the option of killing Takano right then and there. There probably wasn't much doubt that Takano was convinced I was involved in some sort of crime. If she knew about everything happening with Sadako, then she might have even guessed I'd kill somebody. Takano opened the passenger side door for me. You sure you don't need my shoulder? I wouldn't mind doing it for you again. I ignored her and answered by getting out of the car by myself. The rain was still pretty intense. I got my bicycle out the back seat. I was a bit curious who the other bike belonged to, but that didn't matter now. I let Takano hold the umbrella over me and pushed my bicycle up to the front door. Thank you very much. I'll be fine now. My ankle hurt so much earlier. It still did, but it aggravated me that it hadn't even been that bad. It was really, seriously terrible luck. All right, I will be leaving then. Keep it a secret that we had a nice evening drive together by ourselves, okay? Especially from Jiro. Jiro? Oh, she meant Tomitake. I suppose she calls him by his first name. His full name must be Jiro Tomitake then. And then the other bike, the folding one, the back seat that I didn't care about at first, suddenly came to mind. Hey, excuse me, you're from Hinamizawa, right? On that day before yesterday, I walked near the dam half asleep. Tomitake had talked to me. The bicycle he'd been riding, it was... That bicycle in the back belongs to Tomitake, doesn't it? Takano's eyes, I think they sharpened for a moment.
And why do you think that?
I saw it when I met him before. The frame stood out to me.
But wouldn't that be odd? Do you think that it's possible for this to be Jiro's bike?
Odd, huh? Takano, her hair elegantly fluttering, peers into my eyes.
Well, there are no bed and breakfasts in Hinamizawa, are there? Jiro would need to be staying in town.
Is that so? Well, I guess that's right, huh?
You can't really walk from town to Hinamizawa, can you? And there are no buses either. You need at least a bicycle.
She didn't need to tell me that. That's why Jiro was riding a bike.
For Jiro's bicycle to be stowed in my car, and him not in there, that would be strange, wouldn't it? It would mean Jiro was in Hinamizawa without a bike. I'd have to have left Jiro somewhere and put his bike in the car, wouldn't I? It wouldn't make sense.
As she spoke, Takano made eyes like a hawk. Unfortunately, I didn't really understand. That was so odd.
What about this is odd? Aren't you and Tomitake friends?
Wait. Oops. What about this is odd? Aren't you and Tomitake friends? I don't really think it would be strange for there to be some reason you had his bicycle in your car.
But it would be. What I mean is Jiro and his bicycle being in different places in Hinamizawa would make sense. And for those reasons, it means this bicycle can't be his. Do you understand now?
Takano's roundabout way of talking was hard to comprehend. By that eeriness, I could feel that vague dreadfulness. I didn't like it at all. But the most wild, instinctive part of me warned me not to pry.
That's my bicycle. Jiro picked it out for me, though, so I can't deny that it looks alike.
Ah, I see now. I thought it looked similar.
You and I never saw each other tonight.
And now she was talking about something completely different. What are you talking about?
You and I never saw each other tonight.
I stayed there, not knowing what to say. Takano repeated her eerie, succinct phrase to me again.
You and I never met this night. You and I never saw each other tonight.
Something cold and unpleasant crawled up my spine. I knew because I'd killed a person with my own hands before I came to the conclusion that I only had one chance to beat this woman to death to keep her quiet, and I couldn't hesitate. So I could tell that she arrived at the very same conclusion. My instincts warned me again. I wish I'd never met this woman. The faint sense, like a rotten smell drifting from this woman, was no doubt the exact same sense that I was giving off right now. The very peculiar aspiration, the lack of uncertainty at taking a human's life for a purpose, one that only those who had risen above everything had, actually. Maybe I should have called it a nausea. It meant, and I didn't know how to explain it this very well, but Takano was the same as me. In other words, someone who shouldn't have been here. Someone I couldn't have let anybody know who was here. Somebody who nobody who would have wanted to see. And now that we could calmly pretend as though we'd never met. Yes, which meant that, just like I wanted to have nothing else to do with her, she didn't want anything to do with me either. And she, too, never wanted to make it so that we never met. Both of us wished for the same thing. Our desires were the same, which meant Takano's suggestion was extremely practical, and I couldn't outright refuse. If that's fine with you, then sure, whatever. You and I didn't meet this night.
You're right. That would be the best for you too, wouldn't it?
Why do you think that?
Are you seriously asking me that? You can't figure it out on your own, boy?
She cut me off with the condescending word boy, right in front of my house, in a place most unsuited to killing, and yet there was a frozen thirst for blood coming from both of us. I would be killed right here, right now. Yeah, and I should have definitely beaten her as we passed each other. A damp, greasy sweat broke out on my body. That's fine. If you want me, then you can come any time. And when I made up my mind, she shook her hair elegantly and turned on her heel.
Good. I am a kind person, after all.
What was good? How? She was a kind person, was that it? I didn't get it. Takano got into her car. We didn't exchange any words of parting. I performed a massive feat, the killing of Sadako's uncle, and yet didn't feel any accomplishment. On the holy night of Oyashiro's curse, on which the taking of another life was allowed, on a terribly rainy night when the demons wandered, as the agents of Oyashiro's will. The demons were never supposed to meet, but suddenly they did. The demons parted ways triumphantly. There was no reason for them to fight. Both their objectives had already been accomplished. With the rain hitting me like a waterfall, my eyes met with Takano's through the car window. The female demon, her mouth twisted into a distorted, fearless smile. It was too late to kill her. Far too late. The very first moment we saw each other had been my best chance. And now that we had parted like this, I was acutely aware of it. I should not have let her live. She beeped her horn quickly. Her car drove away into the deluge. The one woman who knew what really happened tonight disappeared into the dark. As long as she was alive, this night would never really end. Just get into an accident, I thought to myself. In this downpour, slip on some mud or something, and fly face first into a tree and die. That wasn't a delusion, a wild flight of fantasy. It was an earnest wish. Yes, it was a command. Die! Die! And keep your mouth shut for eternity, because I had no doubt you're wishing for me to die all the same. My curse upon her faded emptily as Takano's taillights disappeared into the utter darkness. Her car lights were completely out of sight now. Even the sound of the engine faded into the sound of the heavy rain was inaudible now. I too turned on my heel to draw the curtains on this insane night, to open my front door and end it all. I began walking toward the front door. I was covered in mud and made a swishing sound with every step I took. Don't worry, my brother Keiichi. She'll die. Her end will be as miserable as she is. I'll throw her into some flames alive and let her dance until she's burnt to a crisp. I'll burn her to ashes in the fires of hell itself until she's roasted as much as she deserves. I wish. I really do. Huh? Just now. I hadn't taken a step, and yet a footstep. With that emotion I turned around. If there was a footprint that wasn't my own, it was obvious someone else was behind me. Oh, just like Onikakushi! So, we meet again with it. I think there's another clue in Watanagashi somewhere. Was somebody else there? I was sick of this. Whoever it was, I was sick of everything tonight. This time I would kill them. I'll kill them without a second thought. I wouldn't hesitate to turn around and dig another hole. But fortunately, there was nobody there. I wasn't going to have to kill any more people tonight. This night, I couldn't handle any more of it. Even if I heard an extra footstep each time I stopped, I put it down to me just being tired. Oh boy. Fire from Hell, victim of the 5th year. Some tips. Alright, and we're going to view the tips. Fire from Hell. I might not take it too seriously. Hello, do you need the hospital or the fire department? The fire department. Is there a fire or another accident? Please speak slowly and calmly. I think it's a fire. There's this rest area in the highway. I can see a ton of fire and smoke coming from the mountains behind us. Nobody goes back there. I don't know why it's lit on fire. Anyway, I figured I should let you know. It could turn into a forest fire. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's obviously in the mountains of Gifu, so obviously they discovered, like, Takano's body. I don't really feel the need to read it because, I mean, the oil drum, yeah, that should be obvious. Okay? I'm not reading it. It's pretty obvious. I'm saving my breath. This year's curse, then. Yeah, that's what it looks like. He kills them differently every year, but this is particularly conspicuous, isn't it? Clawing out your own... Oh, okay. They're discovering Tomitake's body again. And then they were suspecting it was Teppei Hojo that was the target, but instead they got surprised it was Jiro Tomitake. Okay. And then they're like, oh, what about Teppei? Is he, like, missing? He's not here? So they haven't found Teppei or anything like that. So, okay. We don't really need to read that. It's kind of obvious, so whatever. At first, I thought it was a dream. I was staring at the strange sheet, not really understanding what it was, that's all. I didn't go after it, nor did I ridicule it. The fact that was the boring view was the ceiling of my own room, but I didn't realize that for a fairly long time. Yes, I thought I'd been dreaming, but I had actually been staring at the ceiling the whole time. Lethargy, induced by the voices of the cicadas. Even after I realized I was awake, I couldn't draw forth the energy to sit up. Everything I could see, everything I could hear, everything was like a television broadcast had already ended. It was hot, so hot I could choke on the heat. My back was moist with night sweats. It felt gross. Unable to endure it any longer, I tossed in my futon and finally blood started coursing through my brain. I lazily recalled the long day I had yesterday, the reality as I laid here listening to the voices of the cicadas, and yesterday so different from it. In order to kill Sadako's uncle, I had rehearsed, formulated a plan, and dug a hole. It was very hot, and I was tired, wasn't I? When the evening came, I went to school and called him out on the phone. I panicked for a moment when he asked where the police station was, but it worked out. And then I awaited him, and swooped down. I couldn't remember anymore what sort of emotion I'd let control my body. In any case, it didn't go smoothly, but I did it. It was very hard to dig the hole for the body. That feel of the rain pelting down on me, I don't think I'll ever forget it. The rain, the mud, and the sprays of blood. The sensation of floundering in a swamp. When I met Takano on the way home, that wasn't good, no matter how I interpreted it. It was the most misfortunate and uncalculated thing that had happened that night. Everything would have been perfect if only I hadn't encountered her. I was just riding my bike with my shovel in one hand through the downpour, utterly soaked. There was no way someone could surmise I was a murderer bearing a body just from that information. Now that I was thinking calmly, napping under the morning sun, that's what I thought. Still, the more I think about Takano's eyes, it seemed like she understood. Takano. She knew that I'd killed someone, buried them, and that I'd been on my way home, exhausted. Takano wouldn't gain anything from selling me out to the police, but that didn't mean I could feel at ease. I should have killed her. I had crossed such a bridge to get my tranquil life back, and I finally achieved it as a result. But now for the rest of my life, for all the tranquil days starting today, I'd have to live in fear of when they could suddenly end. I may have twisted my ankle, dulled from a total exhaustion. The fact that I couldn't make the snap judgment I needed to. I regretted it more and more as time went on. You didn't have a choice, my brother Keiichi. You didn't have any choice at the time. You were tired. You were a mess. Even if you made the decision, you might not have been even able to kill her. She might have just beaten you instead. In that sense, parting ways uneventfully could have been the safer option. No matter how sharp Takano's intuition was, she had no proof. Her suspecting me didn't amount to evidence by itself. Logically, I know that, but that doesn't mean I have nothing to worry about, does it? Just worry about it when the time comes. Now isn't the time to be worrying. It's the time to be smiling, right? You accomplished so much just to gain a new life starting today, didn't you? You should be happy at this new morning. If remembering the past is too hard for you, then just consider everything up to today as having never happened. You said so yourself. You'd bury it all like it never happened. Well, your wish came true. Everything before yesterday never happened. So be happy, my brother Keiichi. Yay. I stuck up my hands lazily. Felt a little silly for me to be the one doing it. I heaved a deep sigh from my belly. That sigh got my lungs moving. I felt like I hadn't been breathing until just now. It wasn't enough to admonish myself over. All the dice that could be thrown already had been, and the numbers that turned up weren't bad at all. If I lost with those numbers, I'd just have to give up, I guess. I grabbed the chest of my pajamas and flapped it back and forth. Cool air flowed over my sweating body. Okay. Nothing before yesterday happened. Nothing. Nothing at all. I'd forget it all. Yesterday was a dream! What time was it? About midday? Getting myself up and going to school this late seemed kind of absurd, but I need to go. I felt like going to school would be the first step into my peaceful new life. I didn't care how late it was. I would go. I'd go to school right now and get back to the life I had retaken as soon as I could. My lazy body immediately became lighter at the thought. I rolled up on the futon, bounced into my knees, and leaped upright. Nice! Stuck the landing! I stuck out my chest with pride like a gymnast I could pose, and then took a deep breath of fresh air. The fresh morning had been gone for a while, replaced by the crisp air of summer. Downstairs, I got a stern talking to by my mom. Where were you last night? When did you get back? You need to tell me that you won't be home for dinner, things like that. But considering the importance of what I accomplished yesterday, a little scolding was no problem. In fact, I felt like the sort of thing that would happen in such a peaceful life. I listened with an irresponsible smile and stepped out into the sun high overhead. It was around the time lunch break would be ending. Everyone would probably be worrying about me. I didn't go to the festival, and now I wasn't at school. Well, maybe they weren't too worried about it, since they would have gotten a small piece of news, but a happy one from Sadako today. Yes, a small piece of news that her uncle hadn't come home last night. Sadako probably lived her days in a nervous tension for a while, thinking he may still come home. But eventually those days would end. And finally Sadako, too, would realize her uncle was never coming back. And then Rika would quietly invite her. She would say, "You can live with me again." And everything would come back to normal. Our lives would go back to how they were before that man appeared. Sadako would start wearing that extraordinary smile, complete with those protruding canines, and fool everyone with those traps she was so proud of. I'd probably be her first target out of everyone, but I wouldn't be mad. In fact, I might actually shed tears of joy at the return of something so normal. Sadako. She'd gradually go back into that meddlesome personality of hers. I mean, my lack of useful life skills was already completely exposed. I wonder if I'd ever be matched for Sadako. But that would be such a pleasant thing to see, too. With such warm, fuzzy predictions, I didn't feel bad for going to school so late. In fact, I wanted to run there now to get there as soon as I could. Instead, I decided to savor the peacefulness of just going to school like normal without running. The world I obtained for myself that gave me joy just by walking like this. Yes, the world beginning on this very day was something I had won. Without that monumental feat yesterday, I would have never been able to come to school so cheerfully today. The school gate came into sight. Just then I heard the principal ring the bell to mark the end of the lunch break. It was a clear, refreshing sound. I stopped despite myself and let myself take it in. I had stopped suddenly, so there was an extra footstep. With a noise, the blessedness I was feeling throughout my whole body withdrew into any pore it could find, and as if to replace it, I felt like hundreds of hairy caterpillars were climbing up at my feet. I turned back, but of course nobody was there. A single footstep could easily have been my imagination, but the footstep felt so ominous. That extra footstep I had heard after seeing TAKA-KNOWS off last night. With everything that had happened on the insane night, I didn't mind something like that happening once. It had been a hell of a night after all. In fact, having just one hallucination was pretty fortunate, but those footsteps should have ended with yesterday, so I heard them again today. There was really only one thing it could have meant. Last night still wasn't over. It was still going. Still. That insane night. Forever. The step I heard, just that one extra footstep, was quietly ridiculing the nonsensical notion that the world starting today had been completely different than the one that ended yesterday. My classmates playing in the schoolyard all vanished like inside the tide going out. When I approached the school, it felt like that warm, fuzzy scene had ended, and it didn't feel good. At the entrance, I took a quick look in everybody's shoe boxes. Hojo Sadako, she was here. Mia was here too, and Rena, of course. Even Rika was here. Tomita and Okamura were here. In fact, I didn't see any missing classmates. If there were any shoes missing, they would have been my own. I took my shoes off and stuck them in, and took out some slippers. There wasn't a single pair left in the shoe boxes anymore. With that, they returned to their rightful state. But as I stepped into the wooden floor, I noticed that there was one pair of slippers left. Huh? Who's Satoshi Hojo? Satoshi, who'd never been to school since disappearing last year. Until now, we committed this exact same act of violence, but I guess in the very end it went differently. You couldn't make it to school. But here I am. I didn't repeat the same mistake you made. I wasn't about to let myself feel superior about that. In fact, I felt an odd sense of familiarity with him. A misfortunate bond with someone I'd never met due to following the same fate. I headed down the hallway, toward the usual classroom. It felt like it had been a whole year since coming here. Hey, did you forget, my brother Keiichi? Hojo Satoshi didn't really disappear on the night of Watanagashi, did he? Hojo Satoshi disappeared a few days later, on Sadako's birthday if I was right. I didn't know what day it was, but I couldn't say for sure I avoided Satoshi's failure unless I remained here past that day. I was still living in the night of insanity. The teacher still hadn't come to the classroom. The other door clattered open, the one the teacher wouldn't use, so everyone turned at once to see who had arrived. Everyone looked pretty vacant. I suppose I'll greet them. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I do thank you all for coming all the way out here today. When I started to think I'd fallen flat, somebody finally started laughing for me. Good morning, Kei-chan. You're pretty energetic today.
Yeah, energetic. Maybe you haven't got out of the festival mood yet. Huh?
Hearing Mion and Rena's cheerful voices made me realize how dumb those dark feelings I'd been having at the entrance really were. Hey now, festive mood? I wasn't at the festival at all, remember? Before I could say that, Rika smiled at me.
Keiichi, did you make sure to watch my dance? Yep, he saw it just fine. Did you see how big the applause he gave you?
And he ignored it when that blockhead Shion came up and made a pass at him. Take that, Shion! Wow, that felt good! Mion starts laughing at the memory as she slaps me a few times on the back. So, how did the target practice contest turn out in the end? Tomiya was facing me and talking. There was nobody behind me. That meant he was talking to me? Oops, I meant to say it in Tomina's voice.
So how did it turn out? Tomitake turned up dead last. Everyone had a good time with his punishment game.
Weren't you supposed to be the one in the last place, Rika? It was such a turnaround when you pulled off getting that chewing gum. I should have expected that from a member of my club. It was fantastic! Crying at that time is a feat only Furude would be allowed to do, said Okamura, breathing heavily from his nose, in my direction. Everyone laughed, but if anyone but Rika had done it, it would have been against the rules. Rika gave one of her Nipa smiles after she lifted to it in my direction. Rena, too, turned towards me, and then with a somewhat embarrassed smile, she whispered to me only so I could hear.
But really, thanks, Keiichi.
For what?
That giant stuffed animal. I was really happy. It's nice and safe right at my bedside, and I made sure to give it a goodnight kiss before bed, too.
The class laughed at that, cheering and jeering. This whole time, the conversation had been a little off. I wasn't quite getting it. What's this about a stuffed animal?
What's this? Come on, we all worked really hard at the festival yesterday to get it down, remember? The giant stuffed animal.
the gigantic stuffed animal. Rena seemed taken aback, but when she answered, she did it with a smile. We were having a hard time knocking it over, so we tried aiming at the forehead and rapid-fire shooting and stuff. And then, Keiichi, you got a whole bunch of guns ready beforehand and shot them all. It was so cool.
Wait, who was this? All the people in the neighborhood association, including the chairman, were praising you so much at the party afterward. One of them said that he'd fallen in love with your way of words. Tokuzo Kumiyoshi, the chairman of the children's committee, I think. He said he wanted to entrust you with a few of the stalls for the next festival.
Tokuzo is the chair of the refreshment booth. He's on the festival executive committee. Maibara is great at making things sound cool, isn't he? Yep, whenever he talks about something, it seems a lot better than it actually is. You can't say that. Keiichi, you'd be a great salesman. If you did a bargain sale on bananas or something, I bet it would go so great.
What have you been talking about? I mean, I didn't go to the festival in the first place. I swallowed those words. I didn't know exactly why, but in Hinamizawa, this is what had happened. You soda. Okay. Yesterday during the Wanagashi festival, Maibara Keiichi had appeared, and he had romped about with all the usual members of his club. He made a big scene at the few of the stalls, snatched a few of the sticks of takoyaki and okonomiyaki in his glee, rating each of them as delicious or terrible to get everyone excited. And then they seemed like a giant stuffed animal at the target practice game, and everybody went after it. I got a whole bunch of cork guns, firing them in rapid succession, throwing each one away after using it. Admirably, I shot down the biggest stuffed animal there, and I gave the stuffed animal the proof of my victory to Rena as a gift. Then our fun came to a close as we had to go see Rika's offertory dance. There was a ton of people squeezed in there. We all got separated, but we each managed to get into good portions to cheer Rika on from. In the middle, Shion came up and asked me to go hang out with her instead of watching the dedication dance, and I refused and stayed put, watching the dance until the very end. But who was that? Well, everyone's been saying it, haven't they? Maibara Keiichi. I heard an urge to yell in anger at my classmates for having so much fun talking about the festival yesterday with Maibara Keiichi. What the hell are you guys even talking about? Far stronger than that feeling, though, was the sheer uncanny nature of this reality I couldn't understand. Maibara Keiichi, who wasn't me, was in Hinamizawa yesterday, as I threw away my humanity and turned into a demon, and was busy being Sadako's uncle to death. I was having a great time at the festival last night. What the hell? I had to suffer through so much, desperately holding back tears, getting so worn out in that downpour, digging holes, chasing, beating, killing, dragging, burying. Who was this Maibara Keiichi who'd ignored me so much and spent a fun, carefree time at the festival, damn it? Who the hell stood in for me as I put my life on the line, working so hard to achieve this treasure like everyday life? If there was another Maibara Keiichi besides me, then what was I? On the night of Watanagashi, where one died and one disappeared in accordance with Oyashiro's curse, there was only a demon who had killed someone. Dumbfounded as I succumbed to a horrifying possibility, I looked around my classmates to make sure there was nobody extra I didn't recognize among them. To make sure I wasn't among them. It was a horrifying thought. The real Maibara Keiichi hadn't overslept and come to school on time, and that I, who was no longer Maibara Keiichi, had just waltzed in there. But no matter how much I checked, the only people here were the ones I knew. The man I met every time I looked in the bathroom mirror was not here. Okay, everyone, time to start afternoon classes. Please take your seats. President, please lead the class. The teacher entered and everyone hurried back to their seats. Upon finding me, who was so stupidly late, she gave me a stern talking to, but I wasn't listening to it. Wasn't our old life supposed to start today? Something wasn't right. It was just strange. I was supposed to go back to my fun old life after yesterday.
I'd set foot in a incomparably mysterious world that was completely different from both my old life and my recent one. Yes, this was without a doubt a different world than the one that I'd been living in until now. There is no possible way such an absurd thing would be possible. But unless it was true, I couldn't explain anything that had just happened. In this classroom, I was surrounded by so many faces I knew, and yet I felt isolated. The cicadas sounded no different than when they had before now, but they somehow seemed false. The air was parched and dry too, making me think, was the air in Hinamizawa always this uncomfortable? Hey, Rena?
What is it? We're in class.
About the festival yesterday. When would you say I got there?
Huh?
To be honest, I was pretty excited afterward, and I gobbled down some cans of beer. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't quite remember some things. For some random babbling, it wasn't a bad excuse.
Keiichi, you said you wouldn't come at first, didn't you? You called Mi-chan's house about it, right?
That matched. I called Mion and told her to take Sadako in my place, since I wouldn't be able to meet up with them due to things I had to do.
We all decided that we were setting up for the festival that we'd invite Sadako. We wanted to bring her out someplace where she couldn't see her uncle for a little while.
That was the same too. Mion had said that when I called her that everyone had already decided to invite her.
And then we all went, me, Mi-chan, Rika, and to Sadako's house and brought her out. Sadako's uncle seems like a really mean person.
That part didn't matter. What I was trying to ask was... when did I meet up with you?
How could you forget that? Keiichi, I think you shouldn't be drinking until you're an adult.
Whatever. When did I meet up with you?
Well...
At my sudden threatening demand, Rena was at a loss for words. Oops, I shouldn't have rushed that. I told her I was sorry. It was at the shrine grounds. It was unexpected. You were talking to Rika, weren't you?
Yep. You were having a fun talk with Rika in her shrine maiden outfit, and then Rika came up and said, I'm taking you home.
Rena, sorry. I was talking to Rika. And I asked Kei-chan, didn't you have something to do with today? And you pounded your chest and said it yourself, that letting loose at a festival was more important than some silly errand. I didn't say that. I never said anything like that. Oh my god. Sorry, somebody's trying to get my attention and I really don't want that right now. I never even went to the shrine grounds yesterday to begin with. I never had the time to stop by a place like that. I went to dig the hole as soon as I woke up. I had a pretty hard time doing it. After that, I snuck into the school and made a call. I called him out and lay in wait. And when it started raining really hard, with that kind of downpour, the festival should have come to a halt. In other words, it ended then. From the time the festival started to when it ended, it would have been possible for me to have swung by the shrine grounds. I was already there when Mion and the others dragged Sadako out and brought her to the shrine. I was talking to Rika. Then where would Rika say we had met? The teacher went out to wash her hands, so I ran over to Rika's desk and asked her directly.
With you?
Yeah, we were talking to each other before Mion and the others got there, right? When did we see each other? When and where?
I don't know what you're trying to ask.
I drank so much beer, so I lost some of my memory. I don't remember a thing. It looked like Rika had brought into my babbling.
We saw each other when the mayor and the others came out of the assembly hall. You were in front of the ritual implement storehouse.
Huh? What? The ritual implement storehouse? I never heard of a building called that before. Or maybe I have, but at the very least, I wouldn't know where on the shrine grounds it was.
The mayor got real angry at you since you shouldn't go near holy places without authority, remember? Keiichi, did you forget that too?
I was too scared to ask anymore. The more I asked, the more it became clear without any doubt that Maibara Keiichi was present at the Furude Shrine Grounds during the Watanagashi Festival. The clearer that became, the more doubts, no fears I had. Who on earth was I yesterday? Whoever that was, he had a good time at my place, managed to go to an entire day without letting them notice I was there. All right. When did that person leave everyone? This morning, my mother got mad at me for having stayed out late last night, which meant at the very least that Maibara Keiichi hadn't come home while my mother was still awake. The festival should have been closed because of that downpour. If I recall right, when I went back to the house storage room to get another shovel, I think the clock said 7. Since it had already been raining hard by then, the festival would have had to close down before 7. If I returned that early, I would have definitely run to my parents, or at the very least they wouldn't have asked last night when I got back. So the Maibara Keiichi from yesterday, that meant he never went home. That meant the downpour happened. The festival was broken up and everyone left. But he didn't go back to the house. But, that means... When I arrived at the natural conclusion, a wicked chill suddenly froze my spine and climbed up to my brain. That meant Maibara Keiichi was the same as Satoshi. One day he never went home. On the night of Watanagashi, he never went home. The downpour interrupted the festival. On the way home, he suddenly disappeared. And I, who was dealing with the corpse, went home without a problem. I was so tired I wasn't even hungry, so I went up to my room without a sound and crawled into my futon. Who was I? That much was obvious. Maibara Keiichi. Maibara Keiichi was me. There may have been another one, but that doesn't negate the fact that I was Maibara Keiichi. Then the other Maibara Keiichi was what? The voices of the cicadas steadily filling the classroom were beginning to bother me. Suddenly I laid eyes on Sadako. Sadako's expression was as dark as always. She seemed completely exhausted at the life of agony she couldn't even imagine an ending to. What had last night been for Sadako? Did she have fun with everyone and feel a little happier even for a moment? And when she went home, the end of her dream, she'd probably gone to sleep afraid of when her uncle would return. And then this morning, her uncle hadn't come home. She went to school, and right now she must have been still trapped by this rotten idea from which she couldn't be saved, that her uncle would need her when she got back. But you can rest easy, Sadako. Your uncle won't ever be coming back. I couldn't tell her it was because I killed him. When Sadako realized on her own that her uncle would never return, that would truly be the end of a long, insane night. That's right. I didn't do anything wrong. I did the best possible thing I could have as Sadako's Nini. Not an atom of my body I regretted it. And look, calm down and think, Maibara Keiichi. From a certain point of view, isn't it convenient that there was another Maibara Keiichi? I buried the corpse perfectly. A beginning wouldn't happen. But if the worst came to worst and it got out and the investigation got to me, I now had a strong alibi, able to profess the fact that I'd been at the Watanagashi festival, but accepting something so creepy and using it as an alibi. Still, if I proved I hadn't gone to the festival yesterday, it wouldn't do no good and a whole lot of harm. That actually left a barely bad aftertaste. You'll forget about Maibara Keiichi, everything that happened before yesterday. So just forget about the Maibara Keiichi who was there yesterday too. Instead, let's just watch gently over Sadako for the day her smile returns, and the day that would mark the end of that insane, all too long night. That's all for today, class. Please go straight back to your homes, everyone. President, if you would. Everybody stand up. At attention. Bow. Goodbye! I thought about many things and saw my thoughts dispersed by many other things. I didn't know whether or not time had been spent worrying or daydreaming, but either way it came to an end along with the class. Cheerfully, our classmates got in their things and ran for the hallway. Mio, Rena, and Rika were packing up as well. What about Sadako? This whole day she seemed deflated. Well, her uncle may not have returned last night, but she wouldn't have known he'd never return. How much I wanted to express that fact to her. Sadako packed up her pencil box and math workbook messily. After a dark glance at the clock, he heaved a sigh, and then went to leave the classroom. And suddenly, somebody placed a hand on her shoulder and stopped her.
What is it? I watered the plants like I was supposed to and got all the printouts done.
Her words, possessed by a persecution complex, hurt. I spoke loudly so everyone could hear. Hey everyone! Why don't we all have club up today? It's been a while! Sadako had always had to tend to her uncle, so club had been on hiatus. In our minds, our club was a proof of a calm, peaceful life. By enjoying being together, I wanted to make Sadako realize her days of darkness were over.
I'm okay. I'll do it. Me.
Well, I mean, I don't mind if it's okay with Sadako. Under a condition. That was important. With everything up to her, Sadako gave a worried look. Come on, Sadako, it's been a long time. Let's go crazy.
Well, I'm happy you feel that way, but...
My uncle might already be home, thus spoke her darkened eyes, her mouth unmoving. You've been choking on life every day for a while. You must be about to suffocate. It's not good for your mind or body. Once in a while, you've got to have some fun.
Please leave it alone. It's not like I don't want to do club again.
With one word, but. She looked down. Sadako, you know as well as anyone that it's more fun being with anyone, right? We're friends. That means we can spend time with each other. I mean, you had a great time at the festival yesterday with everyone, didn't you? Rena nearly said something, but she was too late.
Keiichi, what are you saying?
My arms on her shoulders seemed to weigh her down, and she threw it off.
When exactly was I playing and having fun at the festival? The only one having fun was you, Keiichi.
Huh? I looked over to Mion for help, but now everyone was looking down. My instincts told me that Sadako hadn't gone to the festival. But Rena said it herself that she went with Mion to Sadako's house to invite her.
Sadako left on the way there. She didn't go to the shrine.
Why? I realized the absurdity of what I just said with Sadako in front of me. She said her uncle was waiting at home and she couldn't have fun by herself when we were in front of the shrine. We tried to stop her too. We told her her uncle said it was okay and that he wouldn't get mad if she had a good time. At some point, tears had begun welling up in Sadako's eyes. Sadako was so afraid of her uncle. She couldn't even allow herself time with her friends and went home. No, she was even afraid of letting herself have a good time with her friends.
Keiichi, you must have it nice, having a blast at the festival all night. They told me you went all out, didn't you? I'm very envious.
Smiling to herself, her tears began to fall.
I must provide for my uncle. It's completely different from you. Without you, let your parents do everything.
Sadako.
I'm so glad you enjoyed yourself at the festival. I'm glad you had enough fun for me, too. I mean, I want to participate in club, too. Making such a racket with everyone is so much fun. But right now, I can't.
Unable to withstand such violent emotion, a few teardrops slid down her cheek. But even though she was having such a terrible time, not once did she ever say that it was hard for her. It was sad, obstinate bravery. But the days when Sadako had to feel like that were over. Sadako didn't need to endure it, to bear it anymore. She could forget all about it now and smile. I was so frustrated not being able to tell her that directly. Instead, I said something that I'm not sure I should have said before I thought twice about it. He didn't come home, did he? Those words were deeply meaningful to me, but I didn't know if Sadako understood them.
Didn't come home? Who?
He didn't come home last night, did he? Your uncle?
What are you talking about, Keiichi?
Sadako shouted with all her might. When has he not been there? When? When? Wait, oops. Sorry, that was Sadako.
When was he not been there? When?
Oh, calm down. I mean, he didn't come home yesterday, did he?
I don't understand what you're trying to say, Keiichi.
Sadako, what are you talking about? I mean, that man, I killed him. Killed him yesterday. Killed him for sure. And I buried him whole. He never returned to his house.
And even yesterday he was torturing me so much. He yelled at me, he shouted at me, he found fault with everything I did. He threw the dinner I made for him on the floor. He dumped his bowl of miso soup on me too. It was hot, it was messy, and I cleaned all of it up. I cleaned all of it.
What? Our stories weren't matching up. Night?
And this morning when he woke me up to make him breakfast, he got so mad at me. He would have gotten mad at me whether I'd gotten up or not.
Sadako. Uh-oh. Rika went over to Sadako and said a few words of consolation, but Sadako angrily refused those words and thrust Rika away. Crying, Sadako slowly walked into the hallway. After a moment, Rika went after her. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Sadako had spoken while crying. I buried her uncle last night, but she said this morning. That was impossible. I buried him last night, so she couldn't have seen her uncle this morning. Was that Sadako? At that point, I heard Mion's cold voice. Hey, Kei-chan, what did you mean about Sadako's uncle? I said too much. I let my emotions get the better of me.
Rena heard it too. You said Sadako's uncle didn't come home.
Why? Why didn't he come home?
That's strange. Sadako's uncle was right there this morning, wasn't he? So why would you say he didn't come back? Come back!
Kei-chan, you've been saying weird things for a while. Suddenly, Mion and Rena started to speak in strange and creepy voices. What were they doing? What were they saying? Kei-chan, is it somehow inconvenient for you, Sadako's uncle, to be around? No. What are you talking about? Of course it'd be better if Sadako's uncle wasn't here.
Yep, that's true, of course. If only he weren't here, right?
Something wasn't right. The next thing I knew, Rena and Mio were smiling thinly. Their eyes were dark and muddy in a way I'd never seen before. As our eyes met, that mud seemed to fill the air. Sadako's uncle's an awful person, no doubt. I think we'd all be better off with him just gone as much as you do. But he's here. There's nothing we can do, right? Nothing we can do. Something's wrong. Something's clearly wrong here. What the hell was happening? At the moment, a chilly, liquid-like feeling as through my blood had been mixed with sherbet crawled up my spine. No choice. I mean, of course there isn't, but then Sadako would never...
If there's no choice, what will you do?
Rena was trying to prompt me to say more. There was really no choice, so I killed him. I killed him to protect Sadako. That's... Leave him alone. I think things will resolve themselves soon enough.
Sadako said her uncle was here, so he's here. He was here yesterday and he's here today. She said so. So it's fine, right? Right?
Mion and Rena were speaking unbelievably dismissively. How could they be talking like that? Mion and Rena, they were my friends. They weren't seriously worried about Sadako's abuse, weren't they? They were, right? They would never blurt out something like this. And I definitely killed Sadako's uncle. No matter what Sadako or anyone else says, I wouldn't acknowledge it because him being alive was impossible. There's no way he was alive. It was impossible. And yet, since Sadako herself said he was there, that he was alive, I didn't know why or how, but suddenly, Mion and Rena were at my sides, standing there silently. Let's go home, Kei-chan.
After we leave, Rena wants to go treasure hunting for the first time in a while. Mi-chan is coming too.
Kei-chan, you should come along. Of course, you're not allowed to refuse. If words could freeze blood, there was no doubt they would have frozen me solid. I could hear a layer of thin ice, the sound of all my muscles tensing. And with them slowing at my sides, we left the school as if they were police officers taking me away. They talked about silly things the entire way home like they always did, but they always stood at my sides as if to prevent me from escaping. This was strange. Everything about this day was strange. Actually, it had been strange ever since the previous night. Yes, thinking back, it had been strange ever since killing Sadako's uncle. That creepy meeting with TAKA-KNOWS was only the beginning. That insane night was still continuing. Yes, it still hadn't ended. What? What's wrong, Kei-chan? Why did you suddenly stop? Sorry, it's nothing. When I stopped, it was distant, but I definitely heard them. An extra set of footsteps. That was proof. Proof that insane night hadn't ended. Mion left where she usually did, and we finally came to my house.
Okay, Keiichi, wait here for me. Rena will come to pick you up soon.
What was it? Was she inviting me along one of her oversized garbage treasure hunts at the dam site? But why now? Mio was coming along was strange too. Mio may have accepted Rena's little hobby, but she hated fishing through garbage, so she'd never come with her before. The location, specifically being the dam site, was a little creepy. The dam construction site was completely outside the flow of everyday life. It was so remote that no one ever went there unless they thought to in particular. Nobody lived there. There were no lights, so at night it got dark very quickly. I was being forcibly invited there. There was no reason I had to fear Rena and Mio. Besides, Wouldn't the trouble I'd make by refusing them be a pain to deal with? In that way, it didn't seem like going treasure hunting with them was a bad idea, but that insane night was continuing. Haven't the sirens of instinct been wailing in my mind for a while now, warning me that Rena and Mio were strange, that I needed to be cautious? The warning sirens were so freaking loud it felt like my head would split in two. Rena, I actually have something to do.
Something to do? Like what?
Like what? I just have something to do, okay?
If you have something to do, why didn't you say it while Mi-chan was here? I already told her to meet us at the dam site before we split up.
Rena was smiling, but her words made her discomfort clear. Sorry, I just kind of missed the opportunity to say so.
Really?
You're lying, aren't you? You just made that up now, you liar. That's what Rena's eyes said to me. My head hurts. I might have a cold, so I wanted to go get it checked out and get some medicine.
Really?
That really wasn't a lie. My head did hurt a little, so I wasn't lying. Rena couldn't figure it out if my head hurt or not just by looking at it.
Then, I guess that's that.
After staring at me in the eyes for a few moments, she fired a sharp, needle-like stare at me. The tension in my body loosened. I felt my knees might buckle.
If you're going to the clinic, then you should go soon. Sometimes they close early.
Thanks, I'll do that.
Make sure you go, okay? To the hospital.
I will.
Go for real.
I will. It seemed like Rena had realized I was going to refuse her invitation for a while now. With how serious she looks, she might actually call the clinic later to make sure I went. I couldn't say anything careless. Lying about being checked out was just an excuse to decline her request in the first place. It didn't matter whether I actually went. Yeah, I'll go. If you want, I can bring you the bill tomorrow.
Oh, that would be good. Be sure to bring it, okay? Rena will look at it then.
Another tingle started crawling up my back. There was no ignoring it. Rena and Mio must be monitoring my movements. That wasn't normal. Far from it. All of it was insane. I did what I did because I wanted my peaceful life back. But what on earth was all this? It was far from peaceful. Something had gone mad, leaving the world out of order. With the other Maibara Keiichi, with those creepy footsteps I've been hearing, with Rena and Mio acting so curious, and above all, with him being alive. Where was I? Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. I knew that much. Was this really the Hinamizawa I knew? Hey, Maibara Keiichi, where is this? I asked, whipping around the front door to face the one who had been following in my wake all day. Nobody would have been there, of course. Maibara Keiichi, huh? That's just what I call him, the one who had been trailing me behind me this whole time. That shadowy presence always clinging to me, like it was constantly watching for the opportunity to change places. Footsteps always following me was another impossibility. It couldn't have been a ghost, so it was just impossible. So the strangest it must have been my ears, my head, or Hinamizawa. Everything I could see was the exact Hinamizawa I knew so well, and that gave me the creeps. Eventually I decided to go to the clinic. I really didn't want to go outside, but a stronger feeling that the desire was the fear Rena might actually be keeping an eye on me to see if I went to the hospital. But before I went to the clinic, there was something I wanted to make sure of. It was at school. I pretended I forgot something and was going to the classroom to pick it up. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, I was overwhelmed by paranoia. I was just going to the classroom, but I hated it so much, having to be careful to fake it. After carefully verifying once that nobody was watching, I went over to the locker. Yes, Satoshi's locker. I committed the crime with the bat I found in the locker, Satoshi's bat, and then I had thrown the bat into the swamp, which meant the bat shouldn't have been inside, but what if that bat was still in there? It was a very dreadful, incomprehensible idea, but if it was true, it would explain a lot. If the bat was in here, yesterday's events would have all been a delusion. No, an illusion! I hadn't killed anyone, and I'd gone to the festival. I had a great time rampaging about with everyone. It proved that Maibara Keiichi was really me. Proved that I was only under some strange assumption that I'd killed Sadako's uncle. Proved that it had all been a wild fantasy. That would explain everything. Nothing happened yesterday. I just got mad, unable to separate my shocking uncle-killing dream from reality. That would explain everything. If the bat was there, I'd be able to accept that reality. If it was here, nothing will have changed. If it was here, it would mean I'd gone crazy. Preparing myself for the worst, I opened the locker door. I was actually scared of opening it slowly. I threw it open with a bang. Just like the first time, the choking scent of smell and sweat, like a stale towel, came flowing out. There was a baseball uniform and some miscellaneous other things like notebooks. There was also a shoe pouch. And as for the bat, it wasn't here. It was how I left it when I took the bat out. There was no doubt yesterday it really happened. Now I knew I wasn't a lunatic and I felt relieved. But at the same time, I wasn't the crazy one that Hinamizawa was. And the evidence of a reality I found was just as difficult to accept. There was a noise somehow creeping into everything I saw. The world was losing a tiny bit of color. So what did I know about last night now? Now that I made sure the bat wasn't there, I didn't need to be here anymore. Shall I go, for real, to the hospital? Okay. Let's quick save. So we're going to stop tonight. And we are done. Thank you.